All right, Cancer. So now this week from Le Vampire, you pulled Immortal, the consuming family and pressure of peers. And then from Chakra Wisdom, you pulled Creation. Now, basically what's sticking out between the two of them for me is you waiting on the permission of somebody else to start creating your life the way that you choose. Now, Immortal says that you are beyond the definitions of the family or the peers of an adopted family, that you are more than they say you are, more than they allow you to be, and more than you have permitted yourself to be when in their orbit. Now, when you're looking at working with this card, it just basically says to remember that you are your own person and you can create your own life the way that you choose. But, what is holding you back from doing that? Now with Creation, again, what stuck out to me is needing somebody else's permission to create, things the way that you want them to be. Now the Inspiration says that your path is an artistic one. Express your love in a tangible art form. It is time to make decisions. The Personal question says, am I waiting for someone's permission to create my life? What do I need to see in order to claim my own gifts? The key ideas are opening to magic, lasting transformation, divine feminine, awakening creativity, finding your muse, and owning your gifts. So, again, it's basically Cancer feeling like, the pressure of family may be keeping you from, creating something different in your life or finding your muse or, again, owning your own gifts here. All right, Cancer, here we go. Here's the energy coming through. Jeez. Ugh, my goodness. The Ten of Swords. Now, an ending, a painful ending. Oh, my goodness. And I just got out of, with Gemini's reading, the difficulty that's surrounding it. So, for a lot of you, this is going to be, something painful that is completing itself out for you. But again, it is the ending of pain. But I hate the Ten of Swords as far as like what is ending and how you're dealing with it, though. Now, in the past, you have the Five of Cups, which makes sense. Now, if you're looking at emotional pain, is the past coming through and you're still dealing with it here, it could suggest that with the Ten of Swords, it's not something that's easily let go of. But, again, it's over with. Unfortunately for some of you, it may be the ending of a job, an ending of a relationship, something that is going to create difficulty for you looking at the Ten of Swords, But again, once you hit rock bottom, right, there's nowhere to go but up. So it's almost like you're still dealing with it, but I feel like things could have been worse. Like it could have been worse. Now, in the present, the Four of Wands or the Four of Staves. So, basically, when you're looking at the Four of Wands, first of all, when you're talking about the celebration that happens, the celebrating happens based on, how far you've come as far as what you're building here. Again, it's a stable foundation that you're trying to build off of. But what I'm looking at here with these two cards, it's like seeing it in reverse. It's delays, things that are not coming together the way that you need it to or want it to. Things are being held off. There's like literally delays that are happening. And it's all based around, these emotions here with the Five of Cups. Now, beyond having hurt emotions, though, the Five of Cups also suggests that, you feel like you've received less than what you deserve, and I've been feeling that a lot this week every time I see this. But again, with the Four of Wands here, the foundation is there. It's just a matter of getting things out of, on hold and start moving towards something better. Oh boy. Future conditions. So yeah, for some of you, it is going to have to do with a relationship when you're looking at the Lovers. Beyond that, it's the major life choices that you make. And for some of you, it's just delays on getting things going here, especially when it comes to commitment. You may be dealing with a relationship where I almost feel like this isn't something new. This is something that you've already been through, And then with the Ten of Swords being here again, it's either opening up into a new beginning here, looking at the Lovers as future conditions, or, you're still dealing with the painful ending from the past where there is still a lot of hurt emotions. But there are delays. There are delays in getting things going the way that you want them to with the Four of Wands. Your best path to follow, the Eight of Pentacles, basically you're going to have to start putting in some effort. But then the other thing too is, you got to be careful about how much effort you're putting into, a situation that may have ended badly before. Does this really have to be a repeating cycle is what I feel like saying. The Eight of Pentacles, though, is saying that there has to be some effort put through here. If we're looking for stability within a relationship here and looking for some commitment, we got to get past what has happened before. How do we move out of this painful ending and go back into something that is going to be better and more clear in your environment? The High Priestess. There are things that are being kept that you don't know. I hate it when she shows up like that, and I feel like there are secrets. This is, information that is like eventually going to come out. It's different than the Seven of Swords when when you talk about things that are being kept. I don't feel like it's like intentionally being withheld. I think that, the information just isn't being willingly given, is the best way to put it here. When you're looking at it in connection with the Four of Wands, right? When you're looking at the High Priestess, again, it's a passive energy, needing to observe a situation before you make any decisions. But I feel like there are things that are not being made known to you. That information is there. It's just a matter of, you tapping into your intuition and knowing, what is the best path forward here? How am I going to start putting in the effort? Where am I going to start putting in this effort, especially in terms of a relationship, But I worry about the two. But again, the only reason why I feel like that is because of these two here. But I still feel like for some of you, this is a relationship here where you're trying to move away from the past. But unfortunately, it's almost like it created like something that ended really painfully. But how do you get past that and start rebuilding here with the Four of Wands? Especially if there are things that you're not aware of looking at the High Priestess. Your hopes and your fears, the Nine of Cups, is this unrealistic? Is immediately my question. When you're looking at the Nine of Cups, when you're looking at your wishes being fulfilled, right? If you're going to rub the genie lamp, you got to be specific on what you want. And are you still going to be happy when you do receive it? But are you having, unrealistic expectations? Especially in terms of a relationship where there are issues that have yet to be dealt with. Again, looking at the High Priestess. My goodness, Cancer. And I don't know. I feel like for some of you, you're looking at relationship issues here where this doesn't have to be a repeating cycle, but then at the same time, you can't be the only one putting in the effort though either. Like it has to come from both sides, but at the same time, are you, being unrealistic about what you're going to get out of this? Especially if there are things that you're not aware of looking at the High Priestess. There may be some things here that you're either keeping or somebody else is keeping. I don't think that it's in deception. I just think that, there are things that are not being talked about. They're not being talked about, and it's directly connected with, the painful things from the past, the emotionally painful things. And then the outcome, the Five of Swords, when you're looking at that with the Lovers, getting caught up in conflict. And then the Chariot, and there you are. So for some of you, you may be dealing with another Cancer. For some of you, it's just going to be another water sign, or you're talking about somebody who, has some difficulties emotionally on expressing the way that they feel. Maybe what they're saying is not coming out right, looking at the Five of Swords. And then especially with the Knight of Cups. I've always said with the Knight of Cups, actions. You need to see actions here. But if the actions are the result of the Five of Swords, it's not good. Now with the Chariot coming out on this, right, again, it's all about willpower and self-control. Getting those horses going in the right direction. Getting control over the way that you're thinking about a situation, the way that you're feeling. And then on the other hand, too, though, for some of you, you want to move quickly through a situation that I don't think you should be moving quickly through. And again, the only reason why I say that is because there are things that you don't know. But I don't think that that really matters, especially if it comes to, you know, a relationship that's coming back through again where things, you know, may have gone wrong. You know, if you're still looking to continue to build a foundation here, it's like there needs to be effort put in on both sides here, you know. And again, are you being unrealistic about it? And that's kind of what I worry about here. I would be careful about wanting to move too quickly in this situation. You know, when you're looking at the Queen of Cups, though, too, in terms of your own energy, you need to be careful about your emotional attachment to the pain. You know, whether that's mental or emotional. I mean, both of them, it's not something that you want to cling to. All right, Cancer, we're going to take a look at the soul trees. Sorry, guys. You know, and again, looking at the Chariot for some of you, there may be distance that's causing issues, though, within a relationship. If you're at a distance to each other, you know, but I worry about, you know, the confusion here between the two, you know, because the Five of Swords, again, there's no truth there, you know, but when you're looking at the Knight of Cups, you know, this is somebody who's making an emotional offering. You know, but where are they coming from? If it's coming out of conflict, again, that's not good. You know, it could suggest emotional manipulation. You know, but I feel like distance, though, may be an issue for some of you in terms of, you know, a relationship and the conflict that you're dealing with. But I feel like it's like a breakup, get back together, a breakup, get back together. Are we really going to do this again? Is this something that we want to do? You know, but I worry about what's being kept, you know. Earth, passion, and birth. Wow. Okay, when you're looking at Earth and birth, both of them are actually really specific when it comes to this deck. Earth is literally talking about you needing to go outside and spend some time in nature to get a little bit more grounded. Now, when you're looking at passion, right, if you're going to move forward quickly, you're going to want to do it with passion, but where are your passions at? When you're looking at birth, you're looking at the birth of a new life. That could either be literally or just, you know, metaphorically here about you starting a new path. You know, for some of you, the conflict may be surrounding the fact that you have children together, though, too. You know, or children may be an issue. But, you know, do you have a passion for a person? Do you have a passion for the relationship? Is this something that, you know, you want to continue to work toward? Is it realistic? You know, can you expect to see the things that you want to with the Nine of Cups, even though you're coming in with the Five? But what I worry about is the Five of Swords. What kind of miscommunication is going on here, especially in regards to, you know, emotional offerings that are happening here? Right? Be careful about moving too quickly. But I do think that for some of you, the distance is going to be an issue. Not just the distance, but, you know, if you have children that are involved here, you know, apart from the fact that birth is talking about actually, you know, new life, you know, a new life for yourself. But there is a need for you to get a little bit more grounded as far as where your passions are leading you, looking at Earth and passion, right? All right, Cancer, we're going to take a look at the romance angels to see what messages there are for you guys in terms of relationships. I worry a little bit with that Five of Swords coming out. You know, what is the battle really about? What is it really about? You know? And then honeymoon, enjoy bliss of holiday time together. So, you know, if you're going to make amends here and you're going to move forward, you're going to get past the arguments here. You know, again, the travel, the distance, you know, if you guys are going to meet up here, like, you know, you and the person that you're wanting to work on a relationship with, there's, you know, a need for you to enjoy time together. You know, stop worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. You know, just enjoy the time that you do have together, especially if you're really putting forth an effort here, despite whatever miscommunications are going on here. You know, because ultimately, you know, it's going to be up to you on whether or not you want to continue to put forth effort into something that has, you know, been painful in the past. You know, I don't know. I do feel like for a lot of you that this is a reoccurring cycle here, looking at the Ten of Swords. And the reason why it's a signifier is because, you know, there was still a painful ending attached to this, you know, and things that, you know, are not being said is another thing, you know, or not being said right. You know, things that are not known, But I don't think that it's out of deception. I just think that there are some things that, are like not being revealed the way that they should be. What isn't known to you? What information do you not know? But again, I go back to this feeling of, is this realistic? Is this really what you want looking at the Nine of Cups? But ultimately you're going to have to make the choice here coming out.